my memory I will always see Charlestown that I have loved so well, where we played half-ball by the old Wiggy's wall, watched movies at the Hippie under the elm.
Hi, and welcome to Charlestown and Beyond. I'm Kathy Cookie Giordano, your host, and it's a pleasure to be with you again today. I'm going to get right into the show today. It's in the studio, which you know is unusual for me, and we've got so much to talk about. And here's my special guest, Anissa Asabi George, City Council at large. Yeah, thank you for coming today.
No, thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
And I want to thank you. You know, this show is dedicated to the Harvest on Vine Food Pantry every week. And thank you for your participation at the recent cookout. And Karen Foley, thank Karen again
Karen
first.
From my office loves
yes,
coming out to
oh,
help.
she was there early volunteering, and she was just wonderful.
It's a great opportunity for my staff to get out of the office.
Yes.
And sort of reconnect with what's most important.
That's right.
And events like your barbecue are an example of what's most important.
Right.
And I will say that what's so special about the events that you coordinate in Charlestown is the presence of the toonies and the townies.
Yes.
And that everybody comes out to support, and everyone loves being a part of, I think, what you do, but what Charlestown's all about, what all of our neighbors are about, what neighborhoods are about. But in particular, so many of your activities just bring everybody out from Charlestown, new and old, young and old. It's great.
You know, just a couple of nights ago, they had a dedication of the Peace Park on Lowney Way at Mount Vernon Street, and talk about a mixture of old townies and toonies, and everybody showed up. It was just so wonderful to see everybody together.
I love it. Charlestown's a special place. And it's special because of people like you.
Oh, God, thank you. I'll send a check in the mail, okay? Okay, can I ask you before we get into anything else? Now, the City Council passed the budget yesterday.
We did.
That was an enormous task. You had hearings and hearings. I mean, every year you go through this. I don't know how you keep them all straight. I really don't. Can you kind of like walk us through?
I'd be happy to. And I never thought I would enjoy the city's budget process as much as I do. When I was first elected to the council in 2015, one of my colleagues, we had lunch before I was sworn in, and it was Chairman Siomo who chairs Ways and Means. And he said, Anissa, a great way to truly understand the things that the city is up to is to participate in the budget process and be on the Ways and Means Committee. And all of us can be at the meetings, whether you're on the Ways and Means Committee or not. We all attend the hearings. But I took that to heart. I took that advice very seriously. So since my first term, I've sat on that committee. This was my first budget process. We had, I think it was 37 or 38 official hearings, and I'm very proud that I had perfect attendance. But it's really a fascinating process to see where the city chooses to invest its money. And really, Councilor O'Malley actually said it yesterday during the vote. Some of us take an opportunity to talk and speak to what the great parts of the budget are and where we still have some room to improve. But Matt said, used the term, and he quoted somebody, I can't forget, I'm not that fancy with my quotes, but basically he said, we have to remember that it's not our money, meaning the body, the 13 members of the City Council. It's the residents of the City of Boston, it's the taxpayers, it's those that choose to invest with their business or with their tourism dollars in the City of Boston. It's their money. And how do we as a city choose to spend it is a big topic of conversation, and that's why we use almost 40 meetings to make those decisions.
That's incredible. That's a commitment, and you are to be applauded for your perfect attendance.
Oh, thank you.
That's
thank
the
you.
former
For my
teacher.
certificate, my certificate in the mail. But it's everything, and we don't hear from 100% of the departments. We get some communication from those other departments. We talk a lot about public safety and the investment that we're making in our public safety across the city, whether it's police or fire, EMS. We certainly talk about our neighborhoods in particular and the investments we make through public works or transportation. And then of particular interest to me, two topics, although I'm interested in it all, is our education system. A third of our city's budget, over $1 billion, that's with a B, gets spent on our public schools in Boston. And then how we're responding to the public health crisis that we have in the city. I chair the Committee on Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery. And the work that we do in that space is so important to everyone in the city of Boston. And almost everyone has been directly impacted, especially by addiction. But we're all impacted by the ways that we support and are working to support those that are most vulnerable.
Now, do you have a hotline? Do you know of a hotline that we could mention for someone who wants to go into recovery, or if they have a family member that needs help?
It's almost a planted question, Cookie. 311, actually, the mayor's hotline where you call for trash or you call for other sort of city service concerns. We actually now have, with the mayor's leadership, connected 311 call takers with our A-Hope line. But all you have to do is call 311 and we will connect you with someone who can connect either you or a loved one with services.
Oh, that
it's
is
really
so
amazing.
Easy. That is so, that's wonderful. All that red tape that is cut by just dialing 311.
Just 311. It really is an amazing tool. When you think about trash or a pothole, like I said, unfortunately for a needle pickup, and that's something that we've worked a lot through my committee on over the last year and a half. And now when you go call 311, or if you use the app, which is such a fabulous tool because you can track your call through your phone, but there's an option there for needle pickup, because we unfortunately do find improperly discarded needles in our playgrounds, in our public streets, and that's a real concern of mine and some work that we've been working towards with our pharmacies. And I know we'll talk about a lot today, and we only have a little bit of time, but I'll give a quick plug for an ordinance I'm working on. I had filed it last year. It expired at the end of our term. I'm preparing to refile it, rewritten, but it's an ordinance that would require pharmacies to take back used needles. So whether you're in active addiction, or you're suffering from a chronic illness, diabetes, or you have infertility treatments, or you're taking B12 injectables, whatever the case might be, those needles do not belong in household trash. But when you pick them up as part of your prescription, wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to dispose of them properly through your pharmacy?
That would be great.
Now, there are 9 locations across the city where you can return needles for free. Again, if you have a chronic illness that you need to dispose of them, or if you're in active addiction, or I use the term cleaning up after someone who's in active addiction. We've got family members, loved ones that are really overwhelmed by caring for people in addiction. We don't want those needles ending up in the trash. We want them in the proper receptacles across the city. 9 is not enough, and we're pushing the number. Last year, we had about 20,000 that we picked up across the city. That's basically from phone calls and our mobile sharps team going out and doing incredible work. And then we had another, we think maybe 40,000 or so that were picked up in these 9 kiosks. Wow. Imagine all the rest that we haven't been able to get to, and I think pharmacies play an important role in helping.
That is good. Yeah, I hope that bill passes and that you're able to initiate that.
I do too, and we're working towards it, and it's been great to work with the administration, and in particular the Public Health Commission on some of this.
Let me ask you something else. There's a beautiful article in the Globe today. Well, what's beautiful about it is there's a picture of you that is great.
Thank you.
But you're talking about affordable rental units.
Yeah,
now,
rental and ownership.
Oh, good.
Rental and ownership.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Can you address that?
Yeah, sure. So we have known for a while, and I think it's sort of general knowledge that through the affordable either rental or ownership process, a developer comes in, they build, there's a certain allotment, an inclusionary zoning piece, 13% of the project should be affordable. Again, either rental or ownership. It goes into the lottery system. Residents can apply and be, income certified and all that for those units. But there's been a little bit of a backlog, and we thought that it was much smaller than it is. We're expecting that it could be up to 839 units. Wow. There's some debate over what the real number is. But it doesn't really matter what the real number is. We need to make sure that those affordable units, again, both rental and ownership, are in the hands of our residents that are seeking these units. So we'll be working with the administration and Chief Dillon in particular, who will take a leadership role in fixing this problem. And it's, you know, I think a big part of my job to identify problems and to work with the right people to fix them. And that's when government works. When we find problems, we work together to fix them. And there's this, you know, feeling that the hearing order that I presented this week and with the article in the newspaper today, that it's this gotcha thing. No, we've identified a problem and we're working to resolve it and to find a solution so that prospective tenants or new homeowners can get into these units across the city. You know, I'm excited about it because this is, you know, when government works, when it's able to respond. And I had a new hashtag today when I tweeted out the article, and it's hashtag government is a team sport, because we really are in this together, and we should be in this together.
You know, there's going to be so much possible development in Charlestown when
Is there any room left in Charlestown?
Well, very little, but they're talking about the Sullivan Square area when they reconfigure that there might be some space. And knowing my children can't afford to live in Charlestown. I can't afford to live in Charlestown anymore. And it's tragic. And it would be great if Boston residents or those, you know, with generations in Boston could find something that they could afford to stay in the city.
Well, this is really the deal that we've made with developers. You want to build this project, you want a few variances to either go taller or wider or more units, then you have a commitment. You need to make this commitment to the city of Boston to provide these affordable units. We do a lot of rental, we do a lot of affordable ownership opportunities, and there's this real push recently to increase that number of affordable ownership opportunities. And we want people to own their home in the city, because that is, for so many people, we talk about the wealth gap, we talk about generational wealth. Creating ownership opportunities for families is a real entryway into creating generational wealth for them and for their families.
That is wonderful. Oh, great.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. I'm very excited about it, and happy to especially partner with Chief Dillon, because she's been such a champion on housing issues, and we've had the opportunity over the last 2.5 years to work on family homelessness in particular. That's been an interest of mine. In the Boston Public Schools, for example, there are 4,000 young people experiencing homelessness.
That's sad.
And it's very sad, and part of it is connected to personal economics and that wealth gap that I just mentioned. It's connected to and related to the rising cost of living in the city. But it's also related to the opioid crisis. It's related to mental health, individuals in mental health crisis. It's the whole thing. And so working with her shop and a few nonprofit partners, we've been able to really focus on a handful of schools that have a high rate of student homelessness and support them on creating some housing opportunities close to home. So there's great things happening in the city. As much as we've always got work to do, and as a former teacher, there's always room for improvement. There are wonderful things happening in the city.
Talking about the schools, former teacher, safety in the schools. Was anything included in the budget to increase safety? I mean, knock on wood, we've been okay. And let's hope it stays that way.
Let's hope it stays that way, that's right.
Yes.
And this is one of those investments, you know, a politician, elected official, never wants to talk about wasting money. But when we invest in school safety measures, for me, I want to be able to say a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, look how I wasted your money. We made our schools safer, and we never had to test the expense of that spending. But we know that statistically, the likelihood of an active shooter event or a massive event at one of our schools is unlikely. But we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for our kids, and we need to make sure that we're doing things like active shooter drills and lockdown drills the way we do fire drills. They need to practice. We need to be prepared. But our teachers also need the tools, and our school leaders need the tools to keep those kids and their kids safe. We talk a lot about preventative services, mental health and behavioral health services in our schools. This budget that was passed yesterday had a $2.5 million increase for student-facing, meaning in our school buildings, working with our kids. Student-facing nurses and mental health professionals, that's an incredible investment.
That is wonderful.
It's a great investment, and of course, we always need more. We can use more. I'm a big advocate and proponent of having at least one nurse in every school building,
Yes.
a full-time nurse in every school building. And then we also made an investment because should there be an incident, we need to make sure that we have the facilities in order to properly lock our doors, to make sure that intercom systems work, that we have proper front door protocols should a guest, a visitor come to our school. Who are they? Why are they here?
Right.
We need to know that information to protect our kids. So at the beginning of the budget cycle, there was an initial $2.5 million investment in our capital budget. And I think due in some part to Parkland, in the outcry and the visibility and the advocacy of those young people that really echoed here into Boston, and we heard that from our students as well. And through the mayor's leadership and the school department's leadership, we were able to double that from $2.5 million to $5 million. So we have a $5 million investment, a capital investment in school improvements across the city.
Wonderful.
Now, for me, something that's been really important as a former classroom teacher is the ability for teachers to lock their doors, their classroom doors, should they need to. Unfortunately, you have to go out into the hallway right now to lock the door, and that's the last place you want to be.
That's right.
Should there be an event happening in your school. So as we go through and the school security team goes through and does their audit, and they're in the midst of a school safety audit, we have 10,000 doors that need to be checked. That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and a big cost.
And it's a big cost, and you know, some door handles aren't functioning properly, or they don't have appropriate locks, or keys have been lost. So that's expensive.
Sure.
It's going to take some time. Hopefully not too much time, because I'm on it, so it shouldn't take that much time. But we have a lot of hands on deck, a lot of interest, and a desire, a deep desire to keep our kids safe every single day.
While we're talking about the schools, the new superintendent that was listed today as the acting or
the interim superintendent. So as I'm sure you and your viewers are very, very aware at this point, Superintendent Chang is departing from his role as superintendent, and we have a interim superintendent that's been named. I think officially will be appointed next week. I think if I've got the calendar right. The school committee last night met in executive session, and Laura Pirelli's name was put forward. She is a chief right now of a nonprofit that does a lot of work with Boston Public Schools called Edvestors. My understanding is she has a very deep, I've met her a number of times personally, very wonderful person. And my understanding is she has such a deep connection already with so many of our schools.
Oh, that's going to be helpful.
She's going to walk right into this job and to be able to continue, because it's really important, especially during this uneasy time, this uncertain time for parents and for kids and for school leaders, for teachers, that we have someone that's committed to the city. She's a City of Boston resident. Her children have gone through the Boston Public Schools. It's so important to parents, to so many of us, but it's so important that she's able to step into this role and really hit the ground running. The learning curve is much flatter than if it were someone coming from the outside, brand new to the system. And we're excited about it, but also equally important to have someone at in that leadership role is to make sure that we start the process soon, that search for a permanent superintendent for the Boston Public Schools.
We're running out of time. There is one question.
Oh, there's so many things to talk about.
I know. There is one thing I want to ask you. Now, there's discussion about a new crime lab at the Boston Police Department. Can you address that a little?
Yeah, sure. That came up in our resubmittal hearing earlier in the week with the recently approved and passed criminal justice reform at the State House. There are some new requirements that will directly impact our crime lab at the Boston Police Department. And I want to make sure, and we've spoken in public with the commissioner about this at our police hearing. I spoke about it and referenced it with our resubmission hearing through the mayor's financial office, that we need to make sure that they're equipped to respond to this new legislation, and that the requirements of the crime lab will be able to respond to their work in a timely manner.
Well, that's great. We got about 2 minutes left, Nisa. Anything else that we didn't bring up that you just want to?
I mean, there's so much more to always talk about. The
I'd
City
love
of
to have you come
Boston.
back.
I'm happy to come back whenever you'd like. The City of Boston website. You can link into the Boston City Council page. All of your viewers can go in and watch all of our hearings. They're all aired live, but then they're all rebroadcast, and you can go into the archive.
I try to watch them every week.
And you can go into the archive library, watch all of the budget hearings. They're broken down by topic. So if any of your viewers are interested in that school security hearing, if they're interested in the BPS athletics hearing, if they're interested in our public safety hearings, if they're interested in the D&D hearing, they're all available online. And then my office also puts out a pretty thorough recap of the budget, what went well, what we're really happy about, where we still need improvements, and then I have a few suggestions on where we can find some savings.
That is great.
Thank you. Thank you, Cookie.
Thank you so much for coming. There's so much information. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a great city, and there's a lot going on, so there's always a lot to share.
And it's going to be a great summer in Boston.
I can't wait.
It? Yeah, thank you, Anissa.
Thank you, Cookie.
Well, that's it for this week. I want to let you know, I've been asked many times over the last month, when is the mayor coming on to address the safety issue in Charlestown with all the bridges under construction? I am in conversation with his office, and we're trying to figure that out. You know, his schedule, and it is summertime, and so we're trying to narrow him down, and maybe we'll have to tie him into a chair, but we'll do it. And he's very willing to come on. It's just his schedule. But if you have any questions that you would like for me to ask him, you know how to contact me. And so that's it. I'll see you next week, actually. We're going to go back to our first and third Thursday. Celebrating Bunker Hill kind of confused everything this year. But next week I'll be back on, and we're going to be celebrating Charlestown and, of course, the 4th of July. So until then, goodbye, everybody, and take care of one another. Bye-bye.
There was nothing quite so fair as Dot's Diner in City Square.